I love
Live
that picture.
Never.
There we go. We are live.
Yeah.
I love the picture of the distillery behind us there with the duck pond at the front.
The reflection. It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, you can almost see the distillery behind it.
It's really cool. You can see it in the kind of reflection, yeah.
It's a day like that today, anyway.
Absolutely superb. Yeah. How's things been down your end? Nice and Inverary?
Nice. Yeah, absolutely. It's getting a wee bit windy now, but no, it's been a stunning day. So welcome everyone to our Blether series. Continue tonight with a guest. If you can guess the distillery behind us, you might recognise the duck pond at the front, which we were just talking about. It's one of our favourite Speyside distilleries. So we'll learn a little bit more about that as we go on tonight. Let us know what's in your I was going to say in your cask tonight. What's in your cask?
What's in your cask, guys? Yeah, let's know what's in your cask.
Well, what's in your glass tonight is we're we'll just say before we came live, I have no idea what I'm going to be drinking tonight. Obviously, it's going to be a GlenAllachie. I'm going to start actually. I've just picked up one of my old school favourites. That's the Chinkapin handfill.
Oh, you. Oh, that was
watershed.
That was from 2020. 2020, just beginning 2000. God, I love that bottle.
Bottle 26. Well, I've got this insane habit of when I get to the bottom inch of a bottle that I really enjoy and I know I'm not going to get it.
Finish it off.
It just sits there. So I've got all these great bottles.
Just after the sherry butt was amazing. I've still got some of the sherry butt.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So this was my introduction to Chinkapin, of which
mine too.
We might talk about again later on tonight because
absolutely.
it's one that Billy's doing a lot of work with. So that is my one tonight. We've got James on the 2008. Is that a single cask handful? This is a 2008 Chinkapin.
2008.
So maybe we'll talk about this one. Evening, Ian, and evening, Dave. You guys watching on YouTube. And evening,
Dave's on the red wine. Gratamaco. Well, Dave, I'm on the Rioja from 2007, the handfill from the distilleries. So I'm joining you with the red wine, Dave.
There we go. I think that's the one Dave's in. I think it might not be.
Looks like it. Yeah, let us know if that's right, Dave. Evening, Ian. Ian's first on the button tonight. Before Dave and Phil. Dave must be still pouring a bath.
It's too hot for a bath, isn't it? Surely.
I don't know. Who knows? Is it too hot for a bath, guys? Let us know what you think.
So yeah, let's get our guest on tonight. It's Juliette Buchan, the European sales manager, I think. She will tell me if that's wrong, I'm sure. But let's bring her in.
Good evening.
Good evening, Juliette. How are you?
Nice to see you.
I'm fine. Thank you. Yourself?
Very well. Better now. I have a ram in the glass.
Absolutely. Ram in the glass. I was having a wee dip in the sea this morning, so that set me up nicely for the day.
You're very brave. I don't think I've been in the sea in the north of Scotland once. That was it. Box ticked. Never again.
You have to go in New Year. It's a tradition to go in New Year and do a homemade dip. That's a tradition up here.
Funny enough, I was actually going to go in Portsoy this year, and before going to go and see my in-laws, we decided to take a COVID test. I was fine, but my husband, my son, they all had COVID, so I escaped. I think I think that was it. There was a reason.
The first person to celebrate the family getting COVID.
So I couldn't go for my dip. That was it.
You managed to escape getting hypothermia by the family having COVID.
Yeah, it's funny because actually the night before I thought it was a great idea, and I was like, I'm coming, no problem. And then in the morning I thought, I'm not so sure, but now I've said yes, I can't really back out. So in a way, COVID was a relief.
It's the savior.
There's not many of those stories, is there? It's great looking at all the guys are giving us their drams. We've got James 2009 12-year-old sherry, but the American exclusive. We've got Dave's on an 11-year-old cask 5000. That's his Gratamaco. Gratamaco, is that right?
Gratamaco, yeah.
Yeah. It sounds so much better with an accent.
It's a fantastic Italian wine. So yeah, we work directly with a distillery. With a winery in Tuscany, in Bolgheri.
And so tell us about yourself, Juliette. When did you kind of discover whiskey? What was your first of all, what's in your glass?
Yeah. What's in my glass? Wow. I went a bit off piste on this. But I mean, before I tell you even what's in my glass, for people who don't know me, I think it's maybe quite important to tell them where I come from, because that will, I mean, that's a reason of what's in my glass as well. So I'm actually French from birth, and I describe myself as French from birth, but Scottish from heart. So I discovered Scotland when I was 22, and I just fell in love with it and decided to stay. So what's in my glass? I actually have something you may never have seen, because, can you see, it's called Sequoia.
Yeah, Sequoia.
It comes from a distillery in France, in the Alps, which is where I come from. And it's a really, really small distillery they started about 5 years ago. So this is the first whiskey. And I went to visit before it was even a whiskey, bought a bottle without liquid. And during the pandemic, they bottled it, and they were kind enough to actually send it to me direct to Scotland. So I've got two of these beauties here. And it's just a lovely, lovely distillery, farm distillery. Just lovely, nice and sweet, and it's like a brioche on the nose.
Oh, nice.
So so I thought I would start with a French one, just to kind of set my background.
So you mentioned the French Alps. That's where you're from. I mean, I'm a huge fan of cycling and the Tour de France in particular.
Right.
And obviously, there's not a tour doesn't go past it; it goes into the Alps. So where would I recognise it from anywhere? In the names?
I think so. I mean, it's Grenoble. So Grenoble's quite a big town.
Yeah.
Or just in the outskirts of Grenoble. But that's where I was brought up.
Fantastic.
So from 2 to 22, that's where I stayed. I was born up north, but then came to the Alps.
Okay.
So
lovely
nice place. Really, really nice place. Yeah. But I think, you always discover how nice a place is once you've left it.
Yes,
definitely. Yeah.
So when I went back, it was funny because the first time I went back, I was walking head up and looking at the mountains.
Yeah.
For 20 years, I was walking head down.
Never noticed the mountains before.
Yeah, I think when you live somewhere,
there's mountains here.
They are not noticed.
It's when you grow up with it, isn't it? You grow up and you don't think it's anything special until you realise when nobody else has something like that. And
it's all about standard as well. What you used to. When I met my husband, he kept on telling me that you had mountains up in Scotland, and I was like, no, they're not mountains, they're hills. And he kept on saying, no, they're mountains. I tell you, they're mountains. I was like, no, believe you me, they're not mountains. And then when he came to Grenoble with me again, he was, walking with his head up, and then he said, "You're right, we haven't got mountains."
I think what makes Scotland, certainly the mountainside or the mountain climbing side of things, is the challenging is the weather. It's not the height. I think it's the
weather.
Some of them are the change of weather quickly. It can. That's why we do get mountain climbers from all over the world come here to train, and it's not because of the height. It's everything else that goes with it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I can tell you, skiing in Grenoble is much easier than skiing in Scotland. At least you can see what you're doing. In Scotland, you can't see, and then you end up just skiing on heather and
heather and ice. Yeah.
Good evening, Alistair. Good evening, Gavin. Gavin's watching from Tel Aviv tonight.
Yeah.
And he's lamenting they've got no scotch, no whiskey in Tel Aviv.
No
Oh,
decent
they've
Scotch.
got well, no
No
Scotch,
decent,
but
no decent Scotch is what he
they've
said.
got a nice Israeli now.
Yeah, they've got milk and honey.
Milk and honey, yeah, absolutely.
Get your hands on some milk and honey, Gavin. That's a cracking drap. You got no excuse drinking a Hobgoblin IPA instead. So you got into whiskey with Gordon MacPhail, is that right? Into the whiskey industry?
Yeah. Really, I mean, it was a bit of a chance encounter with Gordon MacPhail 15 years ago. So was deciding to. Again, it's a long story. I suppose we've got all night, but I'm not going to take all night. But I came to Scotland when I was 22. I stayed for about 6 years. Went down again back to France with my partner. And when we came back, he came back for a job in Scotland because, I mean, as you know, you can take a Scotsman out of Scotland, but you can't take Scotland out of a Scot. So we decided to come back, and when we came back, I just thought, okay, what's my next step? And I quite fancied. I used to work in the wine industry, and I quite fancied having a step up into the whiskey industry. So I just contacted Gordon MacPhail, and they give me an interview, and it happened that there was a job which fitted my profile. So it was just, the right time, right place, just a bit of being audacious a bit and sending an email out of the blue, but sometimes it works. So I kind of always say, I came into the whiskey industry by chance. I remained by passion.
Excellent. And how long were you with Gordon MacPhail? About
12 years.
12 years.
Yeah, so 12 years. So very, very formative years.
Yeah.
It's a really, good company to learn about, not just one distillery, but all the distilleries in Scotland. So it was interesting at the beginning because you have so much to learn, but you pick up very, very quickly.
But they've also got such great relationships with distilleries as well. So not only learning about them, but actually, getting into places and getting to know the people because of the relationship Gordon MacPhail has with them. So what an opportunity.
No, it's been fantastic. Really, really was. And also, you know what they have, what they bottle. So I've been very, very fortunate to drink some remarkable drams.
Yeah.
And when I started really doing the sales job, that was 2010. So I started in logistic and then went to the sales side of it. And I remember, we would open some Glenburg in 1963, some Glenlivet 1976. 1972 was nothing at the time. You would open it, you would go to Sweden and have these fantastic visits with my Swedish importers. And we always had the 70s and the 60s among the tasting pack. So that's only 12 years ago. And these whiskies were opened, shared, and usually finished on the night.
Well, you're not going to take bottles home with just a few dribbles in them, are you? There's no point.
No, not in Sweden anyway.
Yeah. So what do you think's changed in the last 12, 15 years that from that kind of opening in 1963 to now? I mean, it's almost seen as sacrilege to open these bottles.
It is. I suppose, people open up to the fact that this is very, very rare. This is very scarce, and money is doing the talking now, which is a shame. Price have escalated. I mean, Gordon MacPhail was among the cheapest. There was it wasn't even a fair price. It was cheap at the time. Yeah. But then everybody realized what they had, and price escalated. So it's now a bit rarer to be able to open a bottle and to finish it.
Yeah. And a lot more emphasis now on how the bottle looks and the presentation and the packaging as well. So obviously that adds to the cost.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And so were you fully focused on whiskey under Gordon MacPhail? Because I know at that time they had a huge wholesale catalogue of wines and vodkas and everything, and streamlined that now much more tightly to whiskey orientated. But
yeah. No, I was always sales and in Europe,
Mhm.
so that's always been my patch. Obviously, being European myself, that was easier. So France always been a big market. Germany, Belgium is remarkable, and then Scandinavia also really a big customer. So always done sales. So the wholesale part of it was really just the UK.
Okay.
But I was quite surprised, when you arrive from, like me, from Europe. Gordon MacPhail is such a big company, such a big independent bottler, and from a whiskey drinker, you know about them.
Mm.
But when you get to Elgin and you say to local people, I work for Gordon MacPhail, or I used to work for Gordon MacPhail, they say, oh yeah, they've got a really nice sandwich shop.
That's right.
And you go, that's not what they're famous for. But the local people knew about the sandwich and the wine and the deli, but they didn't really understand the impact that Gordon MacPhail had in the whiskey world outside Elgin.
Yeah. It goes back to what we're talking about, having the Alps on your doorstep, isn't it? You don't realise what's on your doorstep. I think maybe more so in the northeast of Scotland, we're very quick at playing down what's there. The local distillery can't be good because it's made on our doorstep, or the local hills.
But I suppose as well, you tend to. I mean, I was surprised when I started as well how few Scots actually drank Scotch whiskey.
Mm.
I think now it's a bit more common as such, but at the time, people didn't drink it because their dad used to drink it. You don't drink what your dad used to drink. I mean, I didn't drink cognac or Calvados because that was an old-fashioned drink.
Yeah.
So it seems to be that, Scotch whiskey really is really, really big outside Scotland.
Yeah.
And now it's getting a bit bigger in Scotland because it's making so much noise that people are getting interested. But for a long time, it was an old man's drink.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And I mean, do you think the sort of the pandemic has impacted how much Scotch we drink here?
I think it impacted the quality of the Scotch we drink.
Yeah.
Maybe for some people the quantity as well, but mainly the quality. I think you don't go out. You at the time maybe had a bit more money to spend, and you would splash out on a nicer bottle of whiskey rather than go in the pub and buy Tennants.
Yeah.
So treat yourself with a nice bottle. So the pandemic. Sad to say, but the pandemic's been really good for whiskey industry.
It has been, and I remember when we were told we were allowed to open, and it was a decision for us to make. So we closed the shop, and we had the barrier at the front door, so people weren't getting in. Trained over counter, did tasting things, and it was kind of like, is this going to be worth it? Is what's going to go? And we have never been busier. It's crazy, and you guys were a big part of that as well. You and Richard and Ben emptying your boots of whiskey and loading it into the shop. And,
I remember delivering to you during the pandemic.
Yeah,
it was really good. It was a day out for me, right? Let's go.
Permitted travel.
Yeah.
But what
I don't know if it was really essential, but
I think we were essential to the tax office, the HMRC.
Yes.
They had to sell whiskey to pay everyone's furlough. It's a bigger part of it than the necessity for a drink. But also the social side, even if it was on Zoom, I think people needed that escape, and whether that's with a whiskey or a beer or something, they needed to be doing something. But I suppose that idea that you guys had to let the single casks go, because a lot of distilleries were very precious about their handfuls, and they wouldn't let. We approached another couple of distilleries actually before GlenAlecky got in touch, and I kind of said, would you be interested in selling them through the shop? And we just got a straight no. But having that independent kind of feel and owner and kind of vibe about GlenAllachie, you guys actually approached us and a handful of others, and it was just so good to work like that and allow people from all over the world to get GlenAllachie in their hands. And I think that helped a lot of people to taste GlenAllachie, because you were very new at that point, weren't you, under Billy Walker's leadership? It was just 3 years he'd been in.
Yeah, well, so Billy purchased a distillery in October 2017, and then I think I wasn't there from the very start. I joined in 2019, but in 2018 that's when they launched the first core range. Well, initially the 50th anniversary in the small bottles, and then the core range in July 2018. So yeah, it's a fairly new brand. It's not even 4 years old, the brand itself. So in terms of branding, it's very, very recent, and in only 4 years we've made so much progress, and we're making so much noise. It's just incredible.
Yeah. How big a change was it? I mean, coming from Gordon MacPhail to the sort of big global name to GlenAllachie, to an independent. How big a change was that for you?
It was a big change. From the start, you go from, Gordon MacPhail was about 150 employees at the time, so it grew quite big. And GlenAllachie, when I joined, we were about 16, 17, something like this. So already, you're just in a smaller pond, but I knew that actually the pond was going to get bigger, and that we could really get somewhere. I just kind of jumped at the opportunity to go with a brand that I knew was going to be massive. I wanted to work with Billy Walker and the team. I knew what they had done with GlenRiach, GlenDronach, GlenGlassaugh to some extent, but they maybe didn't have enough time for GlenGlassaugh to really put their stamp on it. But GlenDronach, GlenRiach have been very successful stories.
Oh, fantastic!
So, yeah.
And did you? Obviously, working with Gordon MacPhail and working with other distilleries, had you had a chance to kind of work with Billy through the McNairs company before?
No, I didn't know him. I had met him once actually in South Africa, but that was it. Didn't really knew him. I knew some of the team, so I knew the sales director in person, and so that's why I was approached as well to kind of join the company. But it was good. It was good, and I remember my first day, walking in the distillery and seeing all these casks. It was very surprising, and I was looking, and I was like, wow, well, bourbon, sherry, I know about that. But then you've got Masala, Muscatel, you had, well, obviously port, you had so many red wine and so many things. Gordon MacPhail is very much of a traditional bottler, so it's ex-bourbon, ex-sherry, and a few wine, but not many. And suddenly I just stepped into a distillery which experiment with a lot of different barrels, a lot of different woods.
I love how if you get Lindsay in the warehouse, how excited he gets jumping over barrels and show you what he has, because there's always something different.
Well, that's what happened to me. The first time I went up was just before lockdown, and I got to go up. I just picked up our rescue dog we got her from Spain, and I took her up to see Karen. Obviously, I wanted to go to the distillery as well, but I wanted Karen to meet Posey, their dog. And I got a wee tour around, and Lindsay took me around to the warehouse, and I ended up with a young lad who was on a kind of work experience. I was just with him kind of walking around, and he was saying, I said, I understand so many different bourbons, the sherry. He said, but I've actually got a list, and he had a notepad. He said, I've never even heard of all these red wines. He said, I've got a dozen. He said, let alone bourbon, sherry, port. He's like, there's a list here this big of just red wine casks. He said, it's incredible.
It is incredible.
Writing things down all the time to keep up with all these different names. Yeah.
And obviously now it doesn't even stop at just the wine cask or the fortified wine. We go into virgin oak, and once again, it's not just any virgin oak; it's different type of wood, and that is fantastic as well, to try to understand how the wood itself is going to affect the spirit.
Yeah. Obviously, we had the Virgin Oak Trilogy a couple of weeks ago, and Russell did a tasting with Ronan and our own cats to go through that. I haven't had the chance to try any of them.
They're nice.
If you still not had the Scottish,
I haven't tried any of them yet. I've smelt the Scottish one. That's all I've managed to do.
What's your thoughts on the Scottish oak, Juliette?
I was really impressed with the Scottish oak. I mean, I like the Virgin Oak series, and actually, that's the second one I'm going to pour in my glass.
Yes.
I've chosen the French one again. You know,
the
best of both worlds. The best of both worlds. But
that's a great dram as well.
It is, and I think what I really liked into the Virgin Oak, that was the first series. This one, it's how actually it reflected the culture and the country and the people from the country themselves. So for me, the French was a bit more elegant and refined and a bit of je ne sais quoi, and the Spanish was just really round, really exuberant, warm and sweet. And the Chinkapin, big, bold, American, straight, just straight in your face. So I quite like that. And when I try the Scottish oak, and no offense to anybody here, because I know most of you will be Scottish listening to this, but I expected something a bit rough, generous but rough, because in my head that's
what Scottish people are.
They are, but lovely rough. I absolutely love Scottish people. Don't get
generous,
but generous but
generous and rough,
not always. And it wasn't rough at all. It's really well matured. It's really soft. I think it's the softest of the three new Virgin Oak finish, and it's got this kind of lemon, citrus fruit in it. So very, very fresh. It is absolutely lovely. Yeah.
Lemon meringue pie was one of the tasting notes that came out of our tasting night a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
And as soon as the person mentioned that, it was like, wow, it just a glass full of lemon meringue pie, the pastry, the meringue, that lovely lemon curd, just incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a good one. I mean, unfortunately, there's not many of it. So it's difficult to get hold of.
Indeed.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of questions coming in actually. So I also just popped up one from Ian.
Good one from Ian there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Watching on our YouTube channel. What would you think?
Sorry, what was the question?
So it's he booked a tour yesterday at the distillery. He's coming over in August to take his Aussie cousin or his Aussie living cousin.
What would you think? Yeah.
What would you think will be the thing to look forward to most?
Oh, the tasting at the end. No, everything. The distillery is really nice. It's quite a big distillery, but it's still quite picturesque with the pond at the front, and especially on a nice day. I mean, today was fantastic, and it's a lovely distillery to be in. So we've got a great team doing fantastic tours. You'll see, there's a little film, and then you go around the distillery. And then you then have the tasting, just try a few and discover GlenAllachie if you haven't. I mean, I'm sure that you have, but maybe your cousin hasn't, and it's going to be a change. It's going to be a surprise.
Yeah, because they also get you have your McNairs Exploration series as well. So not just about whiskey on the tasting, you also offer one of the rums as well, don't you?
It depends when you come, because it depends on the stock we have. So the tasting pack tends to change. But you're right, maybe last time you came, you had some rum. We've done some rum, which is partially matured. The first one was Panama, and then partially matured in Scotland at the distillery in some funky cask, just the way Billy does. So we had a 7-year-old peated rum, which was quite interesting, surprising. And we had a 7-year-old unpeated and a fantastic 15 years old, which I liked very much. So yeah, and we're looking at different rums again. So there will be more. Again, a lot of things that we do, apart from the core range, is quite limited. So it's trying to keep pace, and I think it would be difficult, for a hardcore fan of GlenAllachie to manage to get everything and to try everything.
Oh God, yeah. I'm doing my best, but it is impossible.
Yeah.
I think we're going to have to quickly address my tan.
I think so. Yes.
There's a few people mentioned it. Not made worse by the white beard, I suppose, it's maybe set it off. But I've had a few days off, guys. Mike's not been working me hard enough. And today in particular, was up at the beach, up at Sand End, walking the dog. It was an absolutely glorious morning. Had a little dip in the sea, and then I've been in the garden all afternoon. And it's been a bit like this all week. It's always sunny in Aberhurder. It's never foggy and foggy. It's always sunny in Aberhurder.
Paradise up there.
This is a garden. This is a garden tan, a garden in the beach. It's a wee bit of a paradise. Well, you were out on Tuesday, of course. So it's sunny on Tuesday. So yeah.
Beautiful day. Yeah. Unfortunately, I was only offered coffee, but
well, you were driving.
I'll let you off with it. Another question we've got in for you, Juliette, from Philip Dixon, asking, taking whiskey out of the equation, what's your favourite drink?
Wine. That's an easy one. Yeah. I mean, wine is fantastic as well. So many different regions and countries in the world making wine. But yeah, I'm a wine drinker. So wine, whiskey, gin. If I go out, would tend to be gin.
Okay.
Just because it's difficult to find good wine actually when you go out. But yeah,
is wine
a lot when you go out as well.
So for you, is wine? Do you find it similar to whiskey, whereas you'll be in the mood for a certain style of wine, depending on the weather or depending on your mood or how your day's been? Sometimes you just want to grab a nice refreshing Riesling, or sometimes you want something a bit bolder.
Well, I'm going to give you a very, very French answer. It depends what you eat. So, I find it very difficult if I go to a restaurant and they ask about the wine before I can look at the menu. I have no idea what I'm going to drink because I need to know what I'm going to eat.
Yeah.
And I would choose what I want to eat, and then I'll choose my wine accordingly. So every time somebody comes too quickly to say, what wine do you want? I'll just send them away again. I say, let me look at food first, and then I'll tell you. I don't tend to drink wine, on its own. I would eat with it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you wouldn't kind of, at the end of the day, sit and pour a glass of wine just to chill out with?
Start cooking with a glass of wine. Well, actually, no, I'm saying lies because I'm not the cook. I'm not the cook in the house, so we bought 2 glasses, one for me and one for the cook.
It's the old saying, I love cooking with wine, and sometimes I'll even put it in the food.
Exactly. Yeah. No, we had the magnet on the fridge. That's what it says. So yeah, I just always, it's a trick for everybody here, but always let your second half believe that they are a better cook than you.
Yes.
And then you're off the hook forever.
I'm going to write that down. Yeah.
We
always have arguments as to who's the better cook. Tony cooks more often than I do.
Yeah.
But I would say we're maybe on par, but I might start letting her think that she's better.
I know. As you see, I'm not fighting anymore. I've got nothing to prove. I'm just quite happy.
You do realise she's probably watching downstairs, right?
Probably.
No,
We've got another question. Moving on before I get myself in more trouble. From James is asking, and I know there are independent bottlers out there who have released GlenAlecky. Is it still something that's happening, or is Billy kind of tied that up a little bit more?
We're not selling cask directly, but obviously there's still cask at brokers, so there's still GlenAlecky going around. We're trying to buy some back, but not always successfully. But we're trying to buy them back. Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, at the same time, I think it's quite interesting as well to have independent bottlers or good independent bottlers to actually put their stamps on the spirits. So Gordon MacPhail had done previously, and that's how I knew about GlenAllachie as well. You know, they had done some GlenAllachie under the connoisseur choice. But yeah, I think it'll be less and less.
Yeah, and I think that's. I suppose there's two ways to look at it. One is for your own stock, to get your own kind of stock levels high enough, because you know there's a lot of cases where demand is outstripping supply. So the more whiskey you guys have in your warehouse, the better for you. Is there also the part where you want to have that kind of Billy quality stamp of approval on GlenAllachie bottles, where you don't want anyone else messing with it? Because we're getting to the stage now where we're not far off from Billy Spirit being available, and it's very rare that we have Billy Spirit and Billy casks together.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah,
which is going to be very exciting.
Yeah, you just have to wait a bit longer, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah.
And especially with a peated whiskey, I think that's a very, very exciting. And I've had a chance to try some of the progress of the whiskey maturing currently, and it's nice. So watch the space. But we just one bottle until it's reached a sweet spot, and once Billy decide that it's at its best.
And again, that kind of quality mark where you have the patience and you have the time and you have all these great core range where you're not rushed into something like that. It's not this is going to make us money, let's release it, no matter how good it is.
Yeah.
It's something that Billy, the team there will just say, no, it needs to be right. If it takes another 6 months, if it takes another 6 years.
Yeah, no, you're right. You know, we're in the fortunate position to not needing money straight away. We've got stock, which is, keep us going. And that was important as well for Billy to buy a distillery with some stock so that we could start straight away. But yeah, we're not in a desperate position to have to sell whiskey at any cost. We will sell it. We will bottle it when it's ready.
There's a good question there from James, but before we get to that one, I guess in terms of, because I think it was Dave or somebody said it's getting harder to pick up bottles of GlenAllachie. What do you put down to being the major success of GlenAllachie? I mean, it has literally exploded on the scene, and it's taken all sorts of awards. And what do you attribute to the success?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's the quality of the master blender. He decide what he's going to make, and 50 years of experience shows. But it's also, it's not just Billy; it's a team. It's the work of everybody behind or helping or supporting Billy as well. But we were also very fortunate that Billy was already well known. So it was much quicker. The message was much quicker. It's a new distillery. So when I go to Germany, the first time I went on the stand, everybody was coming and say, I heard that's a new distillery from Billy Walker. And that was it. They knew they were going to like it anyway, because they liked Glendronach, they liked Benriach. And these fan club, I call them fan clubs, they had decided anyway from the start that they were going to follow GlenAllachie because they follow Billy. So I often say it's a bit like if you go to a really good restaurant, you love the food. Well, if the cook moves, if the chef moves, you'll just move with the chef. So I think there was a lot of people like this who really just absolutely loved what Billy was doing. And
you think that made it easier?
They followed him.
That he went to what was at the time kind of an unknown distillery, rather than say he went to Highland Park or something like that, where they have their own kind of really core ardent fans. And I know there was rumors of Scapa being on his list. Do you think it made it easier going to what was effectively a blank canvas in terms of brand and people's know-how?
Yeah, he was looking for a blank canvas. I know, I think you're right. He was interested in Scapa. Scapa would have been a good one, but it wasn't quite a blank canvas, although there wasn't many references of Scapa, but there was a few. So he wanted a blank canvas. He wanted stock, as we mentioned before, and he also really was looking for a rich spirit, because you don't make, rich, sweet whiskey in big cask with a light spirit. So that was really 3 criteria: having a strong spirit, complex, rich, having some stock so that we could hit the ground running quite quickly, and then the blank canvas so that we could launch a new brand of single malt.
Yeah,
superb.
I think from the kind of following point of view in the fan base, I don't think I ever in my life imagined that I would actually own a T-shirt with a quote from a master blender. It's in the cupboard with all my rock concert, and you're like, football T-shirts and everything. I've actually now got a master blender T-shirt. I never in my wildest dreams would have thought.
And is that we don't pursue perfect consistency. We pursue perfection.
Yeah,
it's not perfect, but yeah.
Be more like Billy Walker. Yeah,
be more like Billy Walker. Yes, yeah. No, it is. I mean, again, I'm saying this, but if you go to different countries, or I'll pick another one. I'll pick France. It's surprising actually how they're not so aware of Billy Walker. It's not, maybe Benriach and Glendronach hadn't been built around Billy in France, but it had been built around Billy in Germany for sure, Denmark, Netherlands. So again, depending on the country, and some country like Germany, we were mad. I mean, it went ballistic from day one. Yeah. And in other countries, taking a bit more time, but now they discovered the product. They've tried it. People absolutely love it. Yeah. It's very, very easy drinking.
Oh God, yeah. Beyond easy to drink. Absolutely.
Yeah. No, but it's true. I mean, we often say that, but some whiskies are great, and I'm not going to say names, but some whiskey are really complex, but you have one glass and then you don't want another one because it's maybe a bit too smoky, or it's a bit too sharp, whereas GlenAllachie, you have one, you have two, you have three, and then it's time to stop.
I'm very guilty of almost overselling GlenAllachie in the shop. You just can't help it. A customer will come in and ask for a specific well-known brand, and you'll say, "Yeah, we've got that, but I could sell you something that's actually better." And you just can't help doing that because you want people to discover that and to realize this is amazing juice.
I've yet to meet somebody who doesn't like GlenAllachie. Yeah, everybody who's tried it just thought, "Wow, yes."
I think the one thing that's maybe missing in the core range is a full-on bourbon bomb. I think if I could put my tuppence worth in there, we need a core range, fully matured first full bourbon cask in there. I think that'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. I would agree with you, but I think the direction of travel is really a sherry influence. Yeah. But I do like an ex-bourbon. Just
you'd want that to be one of Billy's spirits.
Mm-hmm.
Full bourbon.
Yeah, definitely.
Couple of comments just to kind of before they disappear off the screen, and I did meant to say that James came up with a really good question. This is absolutely perfect for you, Juliette. James is wanting to know what can be done to open the world up to more whiskey. He says there's so many controls in different countries. He sees people pleading for whiskey all the time. So what do you think? I mean, you've got great experience of traveling around the world selling whiskey. Do you think more can be done to open it up?
Yeah, Scotch whiskey anyway, what sells is not so much even the Scotch, it's Scotland itself. Mm-hmm. That's what I found in my travel. People are fascinated with Scotland. This is a place they would like to be. It's the nature, it's wide landscape, it's great people, it's nature. And people love actually Scotch whiskey because it reminds them of Scotland. Even people who have never been to Scotland, having Scotland in their glass, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think, you sell Scotland first and the Scotch whiskey will come after. But my other point would be, I'm not sure we want, at the moment, open the world too much to Scotch whiskey because we have, challenges with stock at the moment.
Yeah.
So let's just keep it quiet for a bit. It's GlenAllachie, because we've got going off. Let us catch up our breath.
But again, going back to that rock band analogy that I used earlier on, it's that way when you were young and you discovered a really good band, you saw them in the Students' Union, and you kind of almost didn't want people to know about them because you thought these guys are going to go massive and then everybody's going to like them and it's not going to be niche anymore. And there's a bit about that with Scotch as well. When you discover a good distillery, you almost don't want other people to know about it because you know you're not going to be able to buy it.
Yeah, that's true.
Once everybody knows, it's a really difficult one in spreading the word at the same time as hoping to still be able to get some. I think Mir Jam has come up with a point. He's saying we are fans, but a little sad that the new whiskies are not available to all of us every time they sell out quickly.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the kind of world that we live in as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we've got the core range, and the core range is really, we're getting more and more volume of it. But obviously, you're 30 years old, or 21-year-old, or 25 years old. We can't make more.
No.
We can't bottle more. We don't have it. We have a few casks, but we'll try to make it last. So, unfortunately, we're not making gin. Gin is easier to plan, but Scotch whiskey, you want a 21-year-old, you have to wait 21 years, from scratch to make it fully. So but the core range, we are really increasing volume. We're trying to please as many markets as possible. At the moment, however, we've had to stop opening new markets because we want to satisfy current markets. And then when we step up in production, and it's not so much production at the moment that we're okay with that, and we've got stock of liquid, but the biggest challenge is really the glass, the cardboard, the corks, the bottling schedule getting packed and trying to find a space for it. So that is the challenge that most companies are facing at the moment.
And I guess that was one of the downsides to the pandemic, wasn't it? The shortage of cardboard, Amazon buying all the cardboard that's available, and then staff getting furloughed at bottling plants and not being able to actually do that.
Yeah. It's. Did you ever expect that GlenAllachie was going to be that popular? That things like the 21-year-old, some of the handfuls were literally just going to go off the shelf straight away. Was that?
Yeah, I expected it, but I thought it would actually last longer than about 10 minutes. You should see the shop. Every time we launch something, there's a queue outside, and not even everybody in the queue will have a bottle.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of shame, especially when you know that most of them are not going to be drunk. But that's the way whiskey is going at the moment. That's that direction it's taking. But I had no doubt that GlenAllachie was going to become big. And we're just at the start of our journey. We've just started.
Yeah. And are you going to be looking at kind of more market specific releases, or will it be the core range as well that you're getting to these new markets?
We've been doing some market specific for some of the biggest market, just because when you do market specific, you need different packaging. So you can't do market specific for 100 case. You need to do market specific for 500, 1,000 case. You need big volumes. So at the moment, the market specific that we do are for the biggest market, but we'll try to do more. We do quite a lot of single cask, which are market specific. So everybody really has a share of the pie. But even that, doesn't satisfy people because everybody wants everything. So
yeah, it is,
yeah.
and you get some. Russell kind of alludes to this quite a lot, where we need to start living in a society where if we can't get it, move on, because there's going to be another bottle out from, it might not be the distillery or it might not be the region that you want, but it'll taste great and you'll get your hands on it and it'll be easily available. It's this fear of missing out movement and this fast finger. It is the kind of devil behind the industry just now, isn't it? That the people are paying money to have bots installed in the computers to constantly scourge for certain distillery names and things, and it's so frustrating as a retailer. We put something live and within seconds it's all gone, and you look at the addresses and they're all from kind of one particular area, and you're like, the local guys aren't getting a chance. But that's up to us as a retailer. I don't know. I don't think there's an answer to stopping people from flipping or reselling or.
No,
almost everybody has a bottle. Even I've got a decent collection there behind me. Most of them are open, but there's a good 6 or 7 that aren't, that I will open if I can afford to. But at some point in time, if I absolutely need a bit of money to pay a bill, I'll sell it. But my intention is to open it. But I know that I could possibly sell 1 or 2 of those if I needed to. So there's every whiskey drinker has got, I would say, every whiskey drinker's got a bottle that they're kind of keeping for special or maybe an emergency or something, but their intention would always be to drink it.
Yeah.
So we're all kind of guilty of that to a degree. We're not all flipping everything we buy, but we're all guilty of holding on to a couple of special bottles that we know are investments. And I guess that's part of the game as well, really.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. And sometimes something you bought at a reasonable price and without expecting it's double, triple, quadruple or more. Yeah. And then you kind of think, I'm not sure I'm going to open that because, as you say, you never know what's around the corner, and maybe one day you will have to sell it or open it.
And if you're living, my wife's got no kind of expectation of this at all, but you could be living with somebody and you could say to them, I bought this bottle for £40. It's now worth 400. And they would maybe quite rightly say to you, well, what the hell are you going to do opening that for? We could be decorating the spare room, or we could be having a holiday or something. Why are you bottling it? Why, So there's that kind of issues as well. There are realities for people. Goodness, these days is about filling your oil tank, isn't it? That's but aye, absolutely.
Well, don't fill your old tank with that bottle.
No,
straight into the tank. Yeah. There was talk of that for a while, wasn't there? Making a car that ran on whiskey. But,
oh, really?
Yeah. It wasn't that long ago, but I think probably the way the whiskey prices are going, it was probably going to be more expensive than filling up the tank with diesel.
So maybe that was what the smell at Knockandoo was the other day when I was up there. It wasn't it wasn't all the whiskey in the air.
We've got a question coming in from John asking about the 16-year-old that was just released and probably sold out everywhere. What this is one of the bottles we've been talking about, maybe the 50th anniversary and the start of that trilogy. He's asking what kind of casks are in there. We know sherry casks, but it's not specific.
So it was partially mature in a Solera cask, so an historic cask, coming from the Solera system. That's the first of the trilogy. That's a past. There will be 3 in total. There will be 3 bottlings commemorating the 50th anniversary of Billy being in the industry. So this is very different from the 50th anniversary of the distillery, which was released in 2018. This is a 50th anniversary of Billy being in the industry. So it's 5 decades in the industry.
It's pretty special. And John's kind of alluding to it is a high price for a 16-year-old. But I think as well the demand is there for that. It must be frustrating as a especially as take the conglomerates out of it, as an independent distillery, putting out a bottle at a reasonable price, say £50 to £100, and then 3 weeks later you're seeing somebody buying it online for £400. And I see where this is. I don't want to get into that conversation because that's kind of up to you guys to set the price point that you think is fair. But that must have some kind of influence, saying, well, people are willing to pay this price. Why aren't we profiting from that? And the kind of secondary market must be driving up. It's a tough one to call. I don't want to go too much into it.
But most kind of anniversary bottlings are usually that kind of thing's usually priced. It doesn't matter what distillery; they're normally priced fairly high. I mean, you're certainly not going to pick up a 16-year-old and with everything that it's bringing with Billy's 50th for the same price as the 15 core range. I mean, that would be ridiculous to expect, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think from a company point of view, you're never going to win in that kind of situation. So you've just got to do what you do because people are going to buy it. And I would imagine most people with that kind of bottle are going to keep it.
Just on, have you managed to try it, Juliette?
No, not yet. I need to speak nicely to Billy.
So you can't even convince people to open it and drink it because it tastes.
No, I'd love to try it. So yeah, next time Billy's up, I'll speak to him.
Here we go. Then what does speaking nicely to Billy entail? Does he like a special kind of cake from the bakers or?
He's got a sweet tooth, that's for sure. But no, just big smile and trying to find the right moment. So
Don't mention the football. That's
no.
Poor Michael Cochran was on the Iron Brew because he's still recovering from last night.
I noticed that. Yeah, I was going to bring it up, but the guys were unlucky. I'm far from a Rangers fan, but they did themselves proud. Jeremy's saying it's an amazing dram.
You've tried it, yeah.
He's tried it.
I'm glad he's tried it.
Well done.
One of the best GAs he's ever tried. So, well, there you go, guys. That's if you've got a bottle, get it open and let us know what you think of it.
Yeah. And I totally agree, John. Just your thoughts, but I mean, I think you're more than entitled to your thought. Absolutely. But I just think for these anniversary bottlings, it's inevitable that kind of price point is going to be higher. But
but you have people buying it, so it would be and it's scarce. It's not big volumes, so that's what's involved in the pricing as well. To look at quantity, scarcity, and
was it a global release?
It's a global release, yeah. So if people are listening from different parts of the world, it's not all in market at the moment. Right. So shipment has been very difficult since Brexit. So what used to take 3 days now takes 3 weeks if we're lucky. So it's very, very difficult to actually launch a product nowadays in every country at the same time. And even, every country in the world has always been difficult, but at least before we managed to kind of do Europe and UK at the same time. And this is now impossible as well. Yeah. So don't despair if you haven't seen it. It's on its way. It's maybe not yet at your local retailer, but check with your local retailer. And that's always what I say as well. If you want one of these fancy bottles, you have to support your local retailer all the way through with other bottles as well. It's quite infuriating when you have people who expect to just buy the creme de la creme and nothing else. We have hundreds of emails all the time to say, where can I buy it? And my answer is always the same: go and speak to your local retailer. Yeah,
we had somebody on the phone for not a GlenAlecky release. I can't remember who it was. It was one of these limited releases.
It'll be Springbank.
Yeah, maybe it was.
God, yeah.
They asked, "Have you got this bottle?" We're like, "Sorry, sold out in minutes," kind of thing. And he says, "Oh," he goes, "I've tried everywhere. I thought you maybe." I was like, "Well, if you tried us first, trying everywhere else and using us as a last resort isn't the way to get into books." I was thinking, if I had one.
Guys, when there's the 10-year-old French virgin oak, there's a 10-year-old Chinkapin virgin oak, there's the new the 10-year-old batch 7. There's the 8-year-old out just now. There's a whole load of GlenAllachie out there to drink. And, you know, I don't think any cabinet's complete without the 12 or the 15 in there as well, which you can get readily available. So never despair. There's plenty of GlenAllachie out there for us to drink, and it's all fabulous stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we've got plenty more as well to come. And also in terms of production, you know, we can produce 4 million litre of pure alcohol. This is far from what we produce currently. We are around 600, 700,000 litres of pure alcohol a year, or trying to get to that. But if you want to drink more, we'll produce more. It's just we need to have to wait maybe 10 years. But you know, we do have liquid stock. We do have liquid stock, and we will get, you know, the brand will get bigger.
Yeah, like you say, it's not gin. It's not a case of almost turning on a tap and waiting kind of a couple of weeks. We have to wait a few years. Which is the unfortunate side, but it's also the beauty of it is, and that's where the magic happens, isn't it? In the cask.
Well, totally. But that's why, for me, that's why whiskey is fascinating. You know, you come from 3 ingredients, and you have an array of flavors, from a very peaty to a very soft one to, you know, something very vanilla to something very chocolatey, and it's fantastic when you think it's only 3 ingredients and 1 ingredient is water. So, you know, it's no other spirit in the world, I think, can do that, can have such a variety of flavors and aromas.
Yeah.
And just think, global warming is just going to make Scotland wetter. So it's going to be even better for us. We're going to have more. We're going to have more water, guys. So the more it rains, you should just enjoy and embrace the fact that we're making more whiskey.
Yeah.
Today's water is tomorrow's whiskey. Yeah.
Absolutely. We've got a question. Just wondering when you're coming back to Holland, or when you're coming to Holland. Yeah, no, when you're coming back. When you're coming to Holland again.
When I'm coming back, at the moment, I think it's going to be September. So I suppose it's around the corner, to be honest with you. But I've got a fair number of markets. So traveling's just starting, but it's difficult to go around every market that I look after. So I've got about 20, I think it's about 27 now markets. So it's a bit of a challenge. But I'm looking forward to second part of the year. It's going to be busy.
Yeah. A bit like we'd never ask you which is your favourite child, so we'll not ask you what's your favourite country, but there must be some places that you go to that you get a little bit more excited. Are there any that kind of you look forward to more than others? Yeah,
I look forward to the new places. I mean, it maybe seems a bit blasé, but when you used to go to Paris, Brussels, Amsterdam, they are fantastic places, but you've already been there. Yeah. But I'm going, for example, in 2 weeks' time, I'm going to Bratislava in Slovakia, where I've never been there, and I'm excited, and I have no idea what it looks like. But just the fact that I've never been there and I'm going to discover something is fantastic. So that's one I'm looking forward to. But every country's got its charms. I'm a big fan of Belgium because of the beer. And its people, but I do like a nice Belgian beer as well. But every country's got its charms.
We went over to Belgium for Scotland Holland actually, football match, but we went to Belgium and travelled up, and we were in Brussels and we found a bar called the Porte Noir.
All right.
And it was like an underground cellar, and hundreds and hundreds of beer. And this guy, the barman, I can't remember his name, but he swore that he could find a beer for everyone. And it was just a fantastic place. One of these underground, dark, kind of almost like an illicit bar.
They've got
I've loved Belgian beer ever since. But unfortunately, I'm now celiac. I got diagnosed celiac 10 years ago, so I don't do well on the beer front. Now and then we have a gluten-free comes out, but unfortunately, I missed that.
Yeah, sorry to hear that.
What?
I said sorry to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm used to it now.
Yeah.
My first thought when I got told that it was barley that contained the gluten, my first thought was, I'm not allowed to drink whiskey anymore, and I'm going to miss out on beer. But the doctor was like, "Oh no, the whiskey's okay because the distillation will kill the gluten." So it was like, whew, thank God for that. Yeah, that was a major panic. But
you might have sold the shop. I might never had a job.
exactly. Well, we didn't have a shop at the time. This was 10 years ago.
Oh, it would never have happened.
The shop was a pipe dream at the time.
Oh God! Thank God for distillation.
Yeah.
Exactly. They say it's distilled beer, so I can't have the beer, so I'll just distill it and drink
Just
it.
distill it instead. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Is there any markets that you're not quite in, Juliette, that you would like to get your hands on? Is there anything there in the pipeline?
Yeah, we've just starting to tap into South America.
Yeah.
So again, I've opened a few, because during the pandemic, you're not traveling, you've got a bit more time in your hands. So I've started to actually look into that and managed to open 2 markets, but we had to stop again due to stock challenges. We just felt that it wasn't fair to really open new market to the detriment of people in the market who actually supported us at the start. So we decided to stop, but I was very close to have something happening in Brazil, in Uruguay, and so on. So I'm hoping that, in a couple of years' time or sooner, we can start again where we left and tap into these markets.
Superb. Yeah, that'd be good, exciting. As long as they don't take any of the whiskey away from us, that'd be all right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, they've got quite a lot of legislation and a lot of paperwork, a lot of red tape, so they tend to actually go for the core range.
Okay. And I suppose one of Dave, who's watching on YouTube, as I said, he's poured himself a batch 7 of the 10-year-old, and that was a quite deliberate move by Billy to expand the batch size, wasn't it, to make it more available. We can't do that with single casks, but
yeah,
it's been so popular. Every one of these batches it's been crazy. I've got a dribble left of the batch 3 here, and I remember.
Snap! I've got the batch 4.
The batch 4.
I've managed to get the batch 4.
That's worth a lot of money. That one.
Well, not when it's open.
Well, I think you could probably sell a dram for a fortune.
Well,
yeah, I've got 3, 5, and 7. I keep thinking I must be sticking to the odd numbers here. But up until batch 4, well, even when batch 4 was out, I remember anytime we wanted some, we would phone up and order, and it would come out, and then the batch 4 one
with 12 bottles. With 12 bottles on the shelf that went boom.
Yeah.
Overnight.
But
it was about the same time as batch 5 came out, I think, that batch 4 won the award. And I remember one guy ordered a case of batch 5, and then he phoned the shop and he says, "I'm sorry, I was looking for the batch 4. Can I get my money back? Can refund it?" We were like, "Well, okay, but do you want to have one bottle to try it?" And he said, "No, we'll just cancel." And then maybe a day later, he phoned back and he says, "Can I still get that case?" And we were like, "Sorry, it's gone." It was like, just a clamor for batch 4. And now, Dave's just put on the comment there, since batch 4 it's went crazy. Keep it on the shelf is impossible. It's so sought after.
The power of awards, it's absolutely crazy. I mean, it's always been a great dram, but I remember when I started, that's the one we had to push because consumer didn't understand why they would have to pay more for a 10-year-old than the 12. So it didn't actually come off the shelf, and I had to phone my customer and say, "Come on, look at the 10-year-old. Can you get a bit? Can you take a few cases and so on?" And it was a hard sale, in spite of the quality, which always been there. And as soon as we got the award, obviously everybody wanted it. And as you said, when we received the award, we were on the following batch, so there was no more batch 4 anyway. But batch 5 went very quickly, so we decided to up the volume, up the quantity, and now we've got quite big quantity of it, of batch 7, and we'll have a batch 8 at the end of the year. So we're really, following demand. And what's funny is when I went to, I think it was Russia, where they said to me, oh, it's great. I mean, you've got more 10-year-old, but now people are saying you've got too much. You've got too much, and it's not the same value, because suddenly when you have too much or have a bigger volume, people don't see it as a value anymore.
Yeah,
but that was a comment that we had. So on one side, initially it was you don't make enough, and then it's like, oh, you make too much now. It's kind of lost its value, but it hasn't lost its value, because the 10-year-old is a drinkable dram. It has to be open. Please don't, don't start collecting 10 years old. That is, But I love it. I absolutely love the 10 years old. I think it's one of my favorite dram from the core range anyway at GlenAllachie. Young but powerful. It's got a lot going on, a lot of different casks. You've got the chocolate, you've got the orange, you've got the honey, and you've got a bit of this fresh eucalyptus in the background. It's absolutely lovely.
Yeah, John just said it interesting that the 10-year-old struggled to sell until the award. It was just exactly what Juliette was saying there, John, just the fact that it was priced higher and people wouldn't understand. And plus, the GlenAllachie name hadn't quite got out there yet. It was starting to pick up a bit of traction with people who understood whiskey. But as soon as the award was won, so we 12 bottles on the shelf. One would go every now and again from guys that we knew were drinkers, who enjoyed it, who bought it to drink, and were buying a replacement every now and again. And then literally the night that the award came through, we came in the morning and they were all sold. They were all sold online that night. So it's just what, as you say, it's just what awards do to whiskey.
Yeah. And when you look at it, 10, in people's mind, 10 is young. But it's never about the age. It's about how well mature they are. And I said, just like people, it's not about the age. It's how you've been brought up. It's how good you are and how you've evolved in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
And let's not forget that 10 is the youngest whiskey in there. There could be some quantities of older whiskey, and Billy's got previous of having quite a lot of older whiskies in his young aged cask. In his young aged bottle.
Yeah, no, totally. But it does, I was going to say it does taste young, relatively young. It's because it's got this freshness. And you lose that when it's 15, 18, 20. So that's what I like as well. And that's what makes it very well balanced. You need this kind of freshness and this oomph and this a bit more acidic, a bit more punchy. That's what I think Billy wanted, and he achieved it very, very well. We've got the 8 years old. So 8 years old. Which would become the youngest of the range. And once again, a lovely, lovely dram, quite soft, fresh, fruity.
Absolutely. And another one to introduce people to the range as well, which is great. I would have to say my favourite release that we've had, so the 11-year-old Moscatel, from about 2 years ago now. Absolutely loved it. I think I managed to drink about 3 or 4 bottles of it. If ever I go into a funny wee shop, some of these shops that have just got stuff gathering dust in the corner, if I see one sitting there, I definitely buy it. I bought my last one, I think, in the Cost Cutter in Dufton, which I always go into to pick up a weird, odd bottle, the last of the range. But that was an absolutely fantastic whiskey. Fantastic.
Yeah, no, I bought a bottle as well. And I mean, I don't buy all of them because, well, my drinking cabinet's not big enough. I always try a few, and then some will come home with me. So Moscatel was one of them. Usually every 10 years old as well, and just grab a bottle.
Is it? I mean, from my point of view, is it likely there'll be another Moscatel release?
Yeah, I mean, nothing's off the whatever you say in English. I lost my words.
The agenda. Nothing's off the
agenda. Yeah, everything's possible. With Billy, I'll come back. But no, we'll do some we'll do some new kind of finishes, and there will be an interesting concept coming in autumn. So watch the space again.
Have you had
an absolute... I have to mention Fraser's comment there.
Yeah.
Fraser McFarlane has just said the Inverurie Whisky Shop bottling was a banger too.
Just bigged us up there. Yeah, thanks. Fraser.
Couldn't agree more.
What did you bottle? I can't remember.
It was an Oloroso, a 12-year-old Oloroso Buchan.
I do like Oloroso.
But again, it was one of these bottles. It was 715 bottles in the puncheon, so it's quite a large amount. But initially, so it was kind of right at the start of the not right at the start, but the start of the GlenAllachie journey, where I think we'd only maybe seen one or two shop releases, and we came out at the start, and then there was quite a number of single cask releases for retailers or for markets, clubs, and things like that. So we plodded along. Initially, when we launched it, we sold quite a lot, a couple of hundred bottles, and then it's stalled a little bit. We did well at Christmas, and then it stalled again.
I don't know. I sold at least a bottle every shift. But I found it easy to sell.
Not like the batch release that just came out. That was gone. But it was a German lad took one of these tasting sets from Roloff Nikolai. I'm not sure if you know Roloff.
Yeah.
He does the wee sample packs of all these single casks, and he actually he wrote a review on them all and highlighted our cask as the best in the. I can't remember if it was a 12 pack or a 16 pack. And he put this review on, and then it started just going crazy again. So, like the batch 10, all it takes is one outstanding review or an award or something like that to make people notice and think, I've got to get my hands on that. And we were going from, you really need to buy this, please buy it, we need to get this out, to, you can't buy that, we've only got some left, so it's not buying it. It just
I sold the last bottle on the shelf on the basis that I said to a woman, she said, if you get anything would be different, I said, well, I really don't want to sell you this. So she bought it. That was it. That was it gone. It was kind of a lump in my throat. It was,
Let's see, we've got a few comments coming through. We've got
well, there's a lot of people wanting to buy John's, or I think they wanting to do a sort of a Noel Edmonds swap shop. Style. So if somebody wants to swap half a bottle of a batch 4 for maybe a full bottle or something, John, is that what you're looking for? Probably.
Is it my half bottle of batch 4?
well, you can get in. You can get in the bidding war as well, Juliette.
If you go together, you would have a whole bottle. So
wow.
John makes a good point there, but I think we've kind of covered it. He says it should be bought for the taste, not the awards.
Absolutely.
I think what Juliette was covering there is that people didn't know about it, or they were apprehensive about the age statement being 10 and more expensive than 12. And I think whiskey drinkers knew how good it was. But for us as a retailer, a lot of our customers aren't buying for themselves, they're buying for friends or relatives or presents and things. So for us to try and explain that to somebody who's not in whiskey is quite challenging. It's the same as the independent bottler, and it's a challenge to get people's head around what an independent bottler is. So that's a huge part of the market, is people who they know somebody who likes whiskey, so they're going to buy them a whiskey, but they don't know about it themselves. And it takes that kind of conversation face to face, certainly, or chats like this to get people to kind of just take a chance on something. It might be a little bit more expensive, but what is it all about? And we have to have that conversation. So,
and I think sometimes people don't trust themselves either, and they might like something, but they're not quite sure because they're not really experts, so they don't really know about a whiskey. They like it, but is it any good? And they've got the reassurance. Actually, they've got okay taste because there's an award or a medal somewhere. And there's very much of that people need reassurance that they are actually, expert. Everybody is expert in what they like. Nobody else knows better than themselves what they like and how they taste.
It's the reputation as well. I mean, working for Gordon MacPhail, you're more than aware of the reputation of Gordon MacPhail. And sometimes when I'm trying to introduce somebody that doesn't know much about whiskey to another independent bottling company, I'll say they do a similar job to Gordon MacPhail, and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I've heard of them. So is that a kind of similar?" So yeah, it's a similar kind of thing. All right, okay, so that must be okay then. So you almost need those kind of reference points to get people to touch base. To dare I say it, the whole Speyside Macallan kind of thing. If you can say to people, this is from Speyside. All right, where's Macallan from? Speyside. Oh well, so this must be good as well then. So yeah, it is. In fact, it's better.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to use those reference points to get people to see the picture.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, totally.
Tobias from Germany is just put on a comment. He's sipping the 2008 Marsala Hogshead, which is a fantastic whiskey. I'm not sure if I got the same one, but I've got a Marsala around here somewhere. I was trying to find it, but
it was the Madeira I picked up at the time. And the first Prem Cru was stunning.
Yeah, it was, and the color was absolutely fantastic. Yeah.
I don't know of another distillery putting out so much different. Ben Riach maybe, in terms of experimenting with different casks and doing such a good job consistently. I don't think there's another one out there like GlenAllachie that's doing that.
Yeah, no, you're quite right, and it's. Sometimes I think maybe we're doing too much, but people are following. It's exciting. We always want something new, but from a sales team point of view, sometimes we kind of just slow down, just doing so many. So but it keeps us on our toes and it keeps it interesting. But you mentioned Marsala and Madeira, and even for me. Well, I was in Poland to show.
That's what he's drinking just now.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's nice.
But again, it's one of these that I can't bring myself to finish.
But no, so I was in Poland for a show, and there was a Madeira producer and a sherry producer and a port producer, and on the last day I just went around and tried to discover actually the Madeira, tried to discover the port and the difference between the Ruby and the Tawny, and there was white port, which we don't use really in the industry, but it's fascinating that the sherry, the different aromas and flavors of sherry. An Amontillado is nowhere near a Pedro Jimenez or an Oloroso. So it's also nice to kind of go beyond the whiskey and try to discover the wine itself.
Yeah. We, as part of the Highland Whisky Academy, which we came up to see you on, so the night before we came to see you, we had a sherry dinner with a sherry sommelier called Annie Manson, and she took us through the 7 different styles of sherry, and very different. I think people think of sherry as this very sweet, creamy kind of, because they're used to kind of Bristol cream or what Granny has in the cupboard at Christmas kind of thing, and that's what we imagine. But your Finos, your Manzanillas, even Oloroso is kind of classed as a dry sherry.
Yeah.
A lot of people think it's quite sweet because we know of it in whiskey terms. But yeah, I love sherry, and I wish I knew more about it, and I wish I experimented more with it, and in terms of drinking it and doing food pairings and that.
Fino Friday, Mike. You've got to do Fino Friday.
Friday. Fino is dry, huh? Fino is hard.
Yeah.
Fino Friday, really Fino with some antipasti, some lovely meat, some lovely cheese, some olives, some bread dipped in vinegar and balsamic. Oh, you can't have bread.
Just balsamic.
Yeah, just have the vinegar.
But yeah, and people, again, it's something that as an industry we're learning how to educate people on different types of sherry, different type, that it's not this Bristol cream kind of goes in a trifle drink, and I think it's something that people want to know. And can learn about. I think Tomatin took out an Amontillado and sherry, and they did a Fino sherry as well. Both amazing drams, but when people look at the bottle, it doesn't look like that. it looks, probably more.
It's quite pale.
Yeah, something, like that. And they're like, that's not a sherry cask. Well, it is, but it's just a different kind of sherry. And hopefully people are now going to be more open in looking at these drinks, because if more people drink sherry, I think it's better for us as well as in the whiskey industry, because the bodegas will start earning more money from sherry and maybe take their cask prices down a little bit, which would be nice.
Yeah,
that's really wishful thinking.
I know. It would be nice.
You don't see many whiskies finished in Palo Cortado, but that's a fantastic, absolutely fantastic finished whiskey. Just
Buchan did one, which was absolutely fantastic. Really, really good. And the sherry itself, Palo Cortado, I think is one of the best.
Beautiful.
I mean, I sit between Palo Cortado and Oloroso. The sherry, the Pedro Jimenez is too sweet for me. I think it works fantastic with whiskey, but to drink on its own, it's far too sweet. Personally, it's good on a bit of ice cream or a bit of chocolate gateau, whatever. But on its own, it's like oof.
Over some cake.
Orange cake.
Yeah.
Seville orange cake. Yeah.
Beautiful. So you say you're away in your travels again, kind of second half of the year. Are you? Because we are planning our next academy in September. Are you going to be around the first week of September?
Yeah, most likely. Actually, I think it's also distilled in Speyside on that weekend. So I'd like to stay for distill. I'd like to see what it's like and enjoy a bit of the festival myself. So excellent. I think the first travel is actually going to be mid-September so far, and then I'll go to Germany, France. I've got maybe Oslo planned if all goes well. Sweden, So we'll see where travel takes me. Hoping that nothing's changed, and
Well, let's hope that everything is almost behind us, and this time next year it'll be like a bad dream, and we'll be back to normal. But yeah, it'd be great to have you. I mean, you and Richard had treated the guys to a fantastic trip around the distillery and into the lab, and the tastings were.
Yeah.
Gavin was watching earlier on. He was part of the academy. So yeah, just it's face to face as we can get.
That's good. Richard will be there. It's no problem, and he did most of it. So.
Yeah, you came in and took the glory though. That was I like.
I'm just an accessory.
Dave's come up with Gavin's still here. Dave's come up with quite a wee thing there. With the cost of living going through the roof, is there anything that whiskey distilleries can do? I think they're already doing it, Dave. They're providing us with whiskey that we can drink, to drown our sorrows and not think too much about the money we can't.
Is it? I think is David asking if they would put bunks in the warehouses so people can go and sleep
to keep warm.
Yeah, I think. I mean, you guys. When the price increases came in, as they do every year, this year's probably been a bit harder hit than most, with the cost of raw goods and transport and all that kind of thing. It's probably been the biggest increase we've seen in a while. But the 12-year-old went from about 43 to just under 50. But you took out the 18-year-old to kind of replace that gap in the market, which I think is fantastic. Most people would have taken that out as a non-age statement and put a lot of young whiskey in there, maybe. But I think that was maybe behind the. It's obviously been planned for a while. With
I mean, we'll stick to our principle to put an age on it, and it was important that we kept something affordable. So the 8 years old is not here to replace the 12, not at all. The 12 still exists, and the 12 years old will continue, and it's evolving. But the 8 is really to have an affordable whiskey of really good quality.
It's a different cask.
That was important. Yes, yeah. It's less sherry influence, but still you've got some Oloroso, some Pedro Jimenez. You have a bit of virgin oak, so it tends to be the same cask makeup, but with less influence of the sherry.
Okay.
And in terms of pricing as well, it's worth noting that we didn't have any price increase during the pandemic, which was not the case of every distillery. So we held the price, although the cost was going up. So we held the price as long as we could, but at one point you just couldn't do that anymore. Yeah. So yes, it seems like a big jump in one go, but that's because we maintained the price for a long time.
I can completely see where Dave's coming from a financial point of view, and we all understand that. We're all having to tighten our belt along the way, and we do understand in the sense that the people who are making these decisions actually don't understand, even though they say they do. And the 12-year-old has gone up an awful lot, but what you've got to bear in mind is we were all buying the 12-year-old for about £35 at one point, and that was a ridiculous amount. So I think we've just got to feel fortunate that we were actually getting such a good drink for that price at the time. And it's not extortionate yet. I mean, what's it now? About 48.
49.
It's not unaffordable. It's still less than a Gordon Field Discovery bottle, for example. So it's still a fantastic whiskey for that price. So it's maybe a more realistic price actually now than it was.
Yeah. But we had Billy's previous distilleries. I suppose GlenDronach being the icon of it.
Yeah.
And the amount of times that people said it's such a good value, it's so cheap, we should be paying £10 more for this bottle. And as soon as that price went on, they're like, "Oh my god, I can't believe they're charging this."
Yeah.
But I mean, just people I speak to, maybe it's the Aberdonians in us. We don't like to part with money easily, and if we do, we like to moan about it.
Yeah, that's true.
we always go around it. We always spend it in the end. So.
And if you ever see something cheap, buy it and don't say anything about it. I know it's Jeremy, what a brilliant comment. Yeah. My belt got a lot tighter during COVID, but not financially. Yeah, me and you both, Jeremy. Me and you both.
I like that. I'm gonna pour that Marsala hogshead. I'm gonna join Tobias in a wee dram now.
So was this one a UK exclusive? Is that single cask for the UK? Or was it?
Yeah, selected for the UK. Cask 586, 10 years old, Marsala hogshead. I got bottle number 177 of 283.
That's good.
I'm going to switch my camera off while I go to because nobody needs to see my backside. So.
Well, I hope
is that because the belt is too tight and just...
I hope he's got something on. He's not sitting on his desk. Maybe I don't know. The suntans maybe got to him after he's skinny dipping in Sandend Beach. But so Tobias I met at the Highland Whisky Academy a couple of years ago. So cheers, Tobias. He was sharing a dram from Germany, I suppose. So yeah, Dave Ferguson, a case. He's watching on YouTube. He says, "I got a cask at £37 for a." I figured £37 for a cask is pretty cheap, but he meant a case.
I'm back with the Madeira. So I've gone for the Madeira. The 2005.
So does mean I've got to go into my cupboard and retrieve one as well?
Maybe.
No, right. You don't have to. You don't have to.
I've got a few. I do have a Marsala from Belgium, which was fantastic as well. For a whiskey club in Belgium, and I came back, which was weird. We shipped things over, and then I actually ended up buying one in Belgium and taking it back with me. It was so nice.
This was our shot bottle, which is just absolutely delicious. And I'm going to open this. I just don't know when now. I just managed to get one before.
It's going an auction for about £90 just now, which is £5 less than retail.
£5 less than retail.
The fees and everything else. I think it'll be about the same. So, and I'm never sure whether I'm happy or sad about that. Yeah, I want somebody to pay £500 for it, but that's never going to.
Is it still going for about £90? Because I remember seeing that one.
Yeah. Well, I don't track it. I don't know.
But there was somebody bought one for like £100 or something, and we still had 100 bottles. I felt like phoning the guy out and saying, "Go and put it back. Come and get one from us for £95."
But that shows you as well how many people actually just buy in auctions, but they have no idea of the true value of things.
I think that in that case, because I made a bit of a joke about it and used it as either an Instagram post or something, but I might be wrong, but it might have been Jeremy Watt, who's watching tonight. He put a comment, you know, some guys can't get from retailers because we don't ship to certain countries. It was maybe the only way they could get the bottle was through.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, Jeremy is in Norway, so I suppose that's really the only way you have to you can get hold of a bottle. That's a fair point.
So without going too much into the ridicule, and everyone's got a reason for it. So
I feel like a joke.
Well, but yeah,
we all like a joke.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm trying to read the comments, but without my glasses, just doesn't work. So I'll stop being vain.
You just got to either move forward or move further away with the glasses.
And no, even now, it's not far enough. But no, I think I reached a stage now, well matured, and doesn't work without glasses anymore.
Indeed. Why are you not wearing glasses, Mike? You've managed to escape.
Yeah, I'm younger than you, Russell. I won't bring Juliette into this conversation.
Let's look at the hair on the head and make that obvious.
That's why I've got the hat. Yeah, there's although in my defence, this bit here, the baldest bit, that was a car accident, so that's not aged.
Indeed, absolutely. Yeah.
So, and I wasn't driving before Gavin Mills gets involved in the driving side of things.
Paul's managed to get in. So is that you just finished work today, Paul? Paul Dempsey's just.
Oh, Paul, yeah. Greeting. Hi, Paul. Yeah.
Good evening, Paul. Nice to have you.
Long time no see.
Yeah, he's no longer Speyside, Juliette. He's
no longer Spey. We'll bump into him at some point on a scooter.
Gavin, why was that not on a private message, Gavin?
You see.
You found a UK online retailer with the 11-year-old basketball. If I listen to me rave about it, I'm looking forward to trying it when it arrives. This happens all the time. I was on a tasting, a club that Mike and I are a member of, guys down in Glasgow, and I was raving about an independent bottling of a GlenAllachie that was finished in a red wine barrique, and there was another retailer involved in the chat at the time, another Northeast retailer, friends of ours. But they sold the two bottles on the basis of me ranting about it, saying it's a fantastic whiskey. I've never got any
commission, no?
Commission from.
Dave Ferguson is asking what have we got to look forward to soon? What's coming out? Can you tell?
Plenty. Yeah, no, can't say much more than this. I wouldn't want people to start queuing outside the shop.
But we know.
And you won't be disappointed. There'll be older expression. There'll be some really funky things. Every age, every price point. So there's plenty to come. Yeah.
Excellent.
And obviously, we also have. I mean, we're talking a lot about GlenAllachie single malt here, but we also have the White Heather. Yes. Blended whiskey. So if you haven't tried the 21 and the 15 years old, please do so. The 15 is really, really easy, nice, soft, sweet. I mean, it's a really high quality blended whiskey.
I think that was one of the top jams of the tasting, was it, Russell?
Yeah.
The Scottish Oak came first, and then the White Heather. Yeah.
I think blind, you wouldn't say it's blended whiskey. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a well-made blended whiskey. It shows you, But
Juliette, again, it's back to that whole thing. I was discussing with a customer, and they were looking for a special bottle, and it was in the price range, and I had 2 or 3 different single malts, and I included the White Heather 21 in the price range, and the customer immediately said, "That's a blend. Let's dismiss that one."
Yeah.
And I was like, come on.
Yeah, but it's our own fault. I mean, we say that in the industry for years. We kept on saying, 10 years ago, that was 10, 15 years ago, we used to say, just, if you have to drink something, drink single malt.
Yeah.
And I strongly believed in it, because the first whiskey I drank, I was 16, and I really don't have a good memory of it. I mean, I don't have much memory of the night itself, to be honest, but I mean, the next morning was just horrendous. And I swore, or I pledged that I would never drink whiskey again. And that lasted for about 14 years. So I was 30 actually before I discovered real proper Scotch whiskey, and it was a single malt. So I assume, like many people, that's what you had to drink. You don't touch blend. And today I realized, no, it depends on the quality of the blend. You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
And at 16, I wasn't paying much. We were looking at the price versus the ABV, and that was it. That was a quick calculation.
I don't think whiskey is quickly become a drink that you don't drink to get drunk on. Probably back then when you were hitting the cheap blends, that's what it was, to get you drunk. And now people are looking at it differently, and they want to appreciate it. Probably more so with the price increases and the cost of living. They want something to enjoy. And I think in Scotland just now, for the last 2 years, the 80, or it's probably more than that. I always get my years confused because of what we've been through the last 2 years. It's probably about 5 years now. But our 18 to 24-year-old category are spending more on alcohol than they ever spending more on alcohol than they ever have done, but they're drinking less. The volume has gone way down. So they're appreciating it more, and they're drinking it to enjoy it more. And long may that continue, because these are the guys who are going to grow up to be brand ambassadors or core clients. So we need these to appreciate it.
As you said, the quality of blends is fantastic, but even if it isn't, sometimes it's about the occasion. And we had this conversation, I don't know if you remember, when Charlie, if you were tuning in, when Charlie McLean was with us, and he was talking about buying a bottle of whiskey in a motorway service station because he'd forgotten to get one as he was rushing down to go fishing with his friends in the Tweed. And he just grabbed this, whatever it was, off the shelf, £16 a bottle or whatever, because that's all they had, dumped it in the fishing bothy, and off they went fishing. Had a wonderful day. They were all really cold. They had one salmon, which sat proudly on the table in the bothy, and the guy who he'd given the bottle to just pulled the cork and just shared it out in 8 glasses, 8 tumblers for the guys to drink. And they all thought it was the best whiskey they'd ever tasted. And it was probably, Safeway's blend from goodness knows where, just some kind of gut rot. But they all thought it was brilliant because they'd had such a great day. They were in fantastic company. They'd had a great experience. And this whiskey was phenomenal. So it's often about the occasion.
Yeah, totally.
And the company. And the company.
Definitely. Yeah. And yeah, it is you, and you guys must have it when you do the tours at the distillery and things, where you get people coming in and think, "Oh, I don't drink whiskey. I'm just here because the partner is a whiskey fan, or friends are whiskey fans and things." So they're either the driver or they're there under duress. But at the end, they give them a taste. Once they've seen the makeup or been in the warehouse, and they have a taste and think, actually, that's really nice, or that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's kind of the feeling and the comments that we get. But it's all down to that experience, that journey, and the respect, I think, that they get from being there. And the amount of times they probably buy a bottle and then they go home and they open it and they're sitting at home on their own, and they pour it, and they're like, it tastes nothing like what it did.
Yeah.
In the warehouse or at the distillery. Well, it's not going to, because it's a completely different scenario. Isn't it?
And I think, sometimes also is people have to realize that whiskey is not really for drinking, it's for sipping. Yeah. You have to take your time, you have to respect the drink. It took 10 years, 12 years, 15 years to make. It's not to take 12 seconds to actually down. You have to respect it. And a lot of people say, because I'm a woman, they think, do you actually drink whiskey? I'm like, yeah, actually I do, but I don't really drink it. I sip it. And then they don't quite understand what I mean. And I'm like, yeah, I enjoy, I take my time. If I go out I do not touch whiskey. I'll have a gin and tonic or have a beer or something like that. But if I have the time, I put my feet up and I want to taste and really, enjoy the experience. It's a whiskey, but one glass, one dram might take half an hour sometimes. So I think once people realize that whiskey is to be savored, is to be really just take your time for it, then some people realize that actually they do like whiskey. They don't have to drink it.
Yeah. It's good. And it's a line I always use or quite often use in the tastings, is that the perfect whiskey for me is one that you can smell and get as much enjoyment. You can taste it, get the same enjoyment, and the finish. You as you said, it could take half an hour, over one dram, albeit probably a larger dram than you would get in the pub. But that whole experience, if you're getting that flavour for 5-10 minutes after the sip and the swallow, you don't have to go back for another.
No. I mean, you have one sip and still here, and then I bet you are the kind of guys who actually smell it or nose an empty glass. I mean, I do that, half an hour after.
I leave all my empty glasses after a tasting for the next morning.
Yeah, I do that as well.
I put them in the dishwasher, I give them a strong smell. And if I really like it, I don't put it in the dishwasher, I leave it till the next time. But I mean, I guess a lot of us still drink a little bit too much, and I'm guilty of that as much as anybody else. Dave, brilliant comment. Oh, Jesus, where am I going wrong when I open a single malt and drink half of it before bed? And sometimes that can happen because it's a little bit like opening a bar of chocolate. Sometimes you only need a couple of bits, but sometimes you need the whole bar. And you just get nights when you want to kind of just keep enjoying that taste. But I guess there's two ways of kind of looking at it always, for example.
Yeah, always, if I do a tasting or if I do a show, I always tell kind of the people, at least the first sip. Take your time for the first sip. And there's too often, and again, Poland was a really good example of that. At the show, you pour drams and they're here to taste, and they don't really taste it. They just down it and they say, "Oh yeah, it was good. What's next?"
Yeah.
And you think,
I think that's a culture.
You can't, you can't have actually got all the flavors here. So at least the first sip, take your time, just make it go around your mouth, and don't have to drink the whole glass like this. But I think respecting the drink and trying to get as much out of the flavor is important.
Yeah, I think we've got both sides of the coin on the chat. Good judging by the comments. We've got David Muir, who's just joined us. You met him at the academy. Not in my house. In that game where we were talking about the 1 hour for, I think David's a kind of an hour a bottle kind of guy.
Well, with a straw.
He's a good Campbellton man. He knows how to drink.
Yeah, exactly. But John has got a great point as well. He's watching on YouTube, and this is something I do as well. Russell, I think you've done this a couple of times as well, and especially if I'm doing tasting notes or a blog or writing about a whiskey, when I'm examining a whiskey rather than drinking it, is I will quite often give the dram to Tony, the wife, and get her opinion on it, because I think genetically speaking, I think it's pretty much proven that the women are far better at picking out and
identifying,
naming smells than what us guys are. We say blue, you guys see Tiffany blue and more royal blue.
Women are more articulate and much more able to describe what it is they're smelling and tasting than men are. And anatomically speaking, you've also got a more receptive bulb, if you like, that's there with all the nerve endings. So I mean, women are better at doing this than we are, for sure. Are
you saying we've got a big nose?
No.
Is that what you're saying?
A better nose. Bigger nose.
More receptors.
Yeah, no, I think genetically it was, you're right. The fact that the woman was here to gather food and she had to have the nose to actually identify if some food were poisonous or so on. So the hunter-gatherer woman. But I mean, it's something you develop. It's, You have to teach yourself. I think you have to train yourself. I worked in the perfume industry for a bit, and initially I knew nothing about flowers and so on. But the more you smell the perfume and you're being told what it is, and you start to recognize and so on. So it's all about teaching yourself. When you cook food, the spice, just keep on smelling the spice. I mean, I keep on smelling fruit. I keep on smelling food. I mean, everything, wine, and even more now with the type of fortified wine and so on. So it's really trying to get to know the words that you want to use, but trust your instincts.
So where about in the perfume industry? Is Grenoble quite close to Grasse?
It's not, but between Grenoble and then coming to Scotland and then going back down to France, I went to Grasse and I worked for 7 years or 6.5 years in a company called Fragonard, which is one of the big three perfume makers.
I've been there twice.
Well, maybe I met you there.
It's amazing. Well, quite possibly did.
Yeah, because I worked from 2001 till 2000 when I came back, so 2007, in the shop in the centre of Grasse.
I've definitely met you there then. I was there in 2006, 2007, and probably again 2009.
Right. Were you one of the annoying customers then?
No,
yes,
no, I was.
Yes, he was.
I was the very generous but rough Scotsman.
Oh yeah, the one coming just before closing time and wanting to smell everything. Tell me about your perfume. But again, that was really good. That was very formative, because you learn a lot, and you learn to actually just trust yourself and smell and trust your own judgment.
Yeah,
and I suppose probably the perfume background. When it comes to it, because obviously the perfumes are made up of different flavors that individually, and you can blend them together. Almost more like a gin than a whiskey, probably, in that sense, where it's done to a recipe.
Yeah.
What I love about whiskey, and John alludes to it, is that they never get the same flavor. It's always different flavors from one person to the next, and that's what I love is about whiskey. Some people's butterscotch is another person's kind of toffee or caramel. Genetically it's all the same, but it's what your memory thinks of and what your taste thinks of, what you're used to, and you get some great conversations, and some of them can be weird and wonderful. One of my favorite tasting notes was we were doing a tasting for a group of Australians, and one of the guys took, I won't name the whiskey because of the tasting notes, but he took a smell of it and he goes, "God, it smells like dingo piss." Well, I can't argue because I have no idea what dingo piss smells like. So there you go.
But it reminds me as well, when I started in industry and there was a particular whiskey, again, I'm not going to say names, but the first thing that came into my mind, and I said it out loud, was, "Wow, it smells like my hamster cage." And it wasn't a pleasant smell, but half the room kind of looked at me thinking, "I know exactly what you mean." And the other half was like, "What?" And I kind of say, well, if you have had a hamster when you were young, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't, what is a hamster cage smell? Not a pleasant one, I can tell you.
Hamster pee and straw, yeah.
Because you never change the straw often enough, that's for sure.
We had we had a lovely a Gordon McPhail bottle. It was a Glen Grant or Glen Elgin?
The Glen Grant,
Glen Grant.
Okay.
And to me, it was a refill set. So to me, the sherry note in there was so old fashioned. It took you back years and years and years to what you expected an old sherry whiskey to be like, but it smelt like your granny's sitting room. And by that I meant that kind of dusty, musty, old fashioned leather. The furniture polish, all those notes, and it was just wonderful, but nothing like the kind of really sweet sherry whiskies that we get these days. It was that just old fashioned, and that was exactly it. I was like, God, I mean, and every time we'd samples for the customers, and I would always say, it smells like your granny's living room, and then we go, "Oh my God, so it does." but in a lovely way.
But you know, some smells are universal and some others are not. Again, when I started, it was quite funny being part of the tasting panel with Gordon MacPhail. There was usually about 4 or 5 of us, and all around the table, and just, you know, everybody kind of just really saying what they smelled. You know, there was no wrong or right. We just let it out. And I used to come out with, you know, Grand Marnier and Tarte Tatin and things like that. You know, Carambar, which is a sweet I used to have when I was a kid, and people would look at me like, what are you talking about? And vice versa, when they were talking about cream soda and, you know, pear drops, I had no idea what it was. So after a tasting session, I would usually just go and buy some soda cream and some or cream soda or whatever, and pear drops and you know, just trying to find out what they were talking about. So culture is very, very important, and everybody's got their own words.
Yeah, definitely. We had a tasting, a virtual tasting that we did, and I think it was if I remember right, it was an independent bottler one. So we had 6 different indies, and there was a girl, Charlie, from Norway, Chamonix, Thera, I think. Can't remember how to pronounce her last name, but so she was on, and she's on a host of tastings. Very, very knowledgeable girl, and we were talking about Parma Violet sweets as a tasting notes, and there was one particular, and she had no idea what we're talking about. So when she ordered the next kit, we threw in a couple of packets of the Parma Violet, so she knew what we were talking about.
It was,
but that's one of the great things about our noses and our tastes. You're never really wrong, because you can only taste what you can taste. There's no recipe to this. It's fantastic.
No, and even the same word can have different meanings.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, licorice, for example, you know, licorice for me is a stick, it's a wood, it's licorice wood that I used to chew when I stopped smoking. And for me, that's what licorice is. Licorice in Britain is usually quite sweet. You always, and then I thought I liked licorice and I went to Sweden, but no, it's salty. You know, and it's got 3 different tastes, but we all use the same word. So actually, licorice, it's could mean 3 different things.
Catherine McMillan in saying hello.
Oh, hi. I was in Poland with her. Hope she feels better. It was quite a hard show.
Oh, no.
A tough gig in Poland. Is there a crowd that are tougher? I mean, and again, I love everybody. I love every nationality. I'm Scottish, of course I do. I never denigrate, but sometimes we understand how different we all are. And I do know that I've got lots of German friends, but I know that German people love details. And classic example, Stuart Buchanan. I remember Stuart once saying to me in one of these chats, I was saying, it must be really weird for your parents to have you and Gordy to be completely different. You know, Gordon's away traveling the world, filming polar bears and lions and bears, and you're traveling the world selling whiskey. And he said, you know what? Sometimes I'd rather face down a lion than a German in a whiskey question. So, I mean, have you found there's a kind of crowd that are harder to kind of, not harder, but more challenging?
Yeah, I think what I found challenging is actually the people who think they know it all, but they're still going to ask you the question because they want to trick you. And even when you give an answer, they kind of still disagree with you because they know better. And that is really frustrating. So there's some of them everywhere in the world, unfortunately.
That's not a nationality, that's a type.
It's but you know, in terms of nationality, usually in the northern countries, they are very, very knowledgeable. So when you do a tasting in Sweden, you have to be really well prepared. I mean, you have to be well prepared anytime anyway, but you know you're going to have the tricky questions. But it's good. It's good. And I mean, maybe it's also, you know, the fact that I'm a woman, I'm French, and sometimes I'm not being taken seriously. people are surprised that actually I do know stuff.
Yeah.
So they tried, they try to trick you, and usually they're quite surprised.
You just turn around and say, "Well, actually, I'm a keeper of a Quaich, don't you know?" Yeah.
I don't usually I don't use the wild card, but yeah, maybe I should. Maybe I should.
Eat my Quaich dust.
That must have been a fantastic moment for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was, and what was really good as well is the person who gave it to me. The master of ceremony was Michael Urquhart. So I've worked with Michael for many years, and he was a master of ceremony in 2016. So it felt really good because I came up on the stage to take the Quaich and they give it to you, and very quietly he said, "Well deserved." And I thought, that was
emotional.
Yeah, no, that was really good. So I'm very, very grateful for this. But I'm also very fully aware that there's a lot of people in the whiskey industry who deserve it much more than I do. And the keeper of the Quaich is a kind of a funny recognition in a way that some people go through it, unnoticed. So it's a great accolade, but I wish that everybody else would be recognized as well.
How is that kind of? Is it a panel or is it a?
You need to be nominated. So again, that's really down to if you're never nominated because maybe your company is not part of the keeper of the Quaich, or you maybe don't have the right connections, or you don't ask to become a keeper. You are nominated, but as I said, some people are never nominated. The Dennis Malcolm was a good example. Dennis Malcolm was only made a keeper, I can't remember exactly when, but in the last 6-7 years, after having worked in the industry for over 50 years. And suddenly people realize, oh, wait a minute, is Dennis not a keeper? So, there's some great personality like this who deserved it, 50 times more than people like myself, but they went through the net for some reason.
But that must be a little bit like the lifetime achievement in acting and stuff like that. There's so many actors that possibly haven't, and there's wonderful people in the whole industry. So it's wonderful that people have actually recognised the work that you do. It's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely.
I suppose it's somebody like Dennis Malcolm who just kind of worked away and never kind of put his head above the parapet in a way that was publicly recognisable. He just kind of did his job. Kind of David Stewart is another example, the kind of thing who kind of shy away from the limelight. They don't want to be the face of the brand kind of thing. So maybe people didn't think about them in that respect. But obviously, it's being recognised as. And he was eventually recognised, as you say.
Yeah, he was, but he should have been recognised way before that.
It's kind of.
But it was an honour, and I keep the Quaich, in the drinking cabinet, but I don't often boast about it, unless, as you say, somebody's really kind of trying to trick me, and then that I did it.
Look at this, MF.
Right.
Wow.
Good stuff. Well, guys, fire in any last questions because we've passed the 2-hour mark now.
Wow, I didn't.
Unbelievably.
That's more than Ben. I'm quite surprised I could speak more than Ben.
I think it has been.
I think we could chat all night quite easily. But I guess people have got to go to work and got to go to bed and stuff.
We're going to have to start doing this at the weekend so people don't have to work in the morning.
Christ, can you imagine? 5 in the morning, we'll be saying, right, guys, hold on a minute, I need to go out for some butteries. I'll be back. In...
So what was your longest chat? Was it with Connell and?
Yes,
Connell
and Graham.
But there was 2 of them, so that doesn't quite count.
We almost did the chat twice.
Yeah, because not only were there two of them, but we were well over the 2 hours with Graham, and then Connell decided he wanted to join, and we kind of started again. It kind of took on another level of kind of
That was, and the other whiskey tea. No, sorry, red whiskey girl.
Haley.
She was on for a while.
Haley was on for a while. Red whiskey girl.
I think she broke
Haley.
because as soon as
that's one I need to catch up on. Then I haven't watched this one.
She was an incredible girl. So she's gone back. She's gone back to Germany. She's going away to Berlin. She's gone back nannying over in Berlin because she's a teacher, I think, when she's here. But she's she was great. And whiskey tea, Tori as well. Lovely girls. Yeah, fantastic. But that
I'll need to go back and listen to your Blether. But I think if you do a fantastic job, it's fun, informative. So
Oh, thank you very much.
I hope I did you proud.
Thank you very much. You did more than that. It's been absolutely fantastic.
We probably should have had you on before now because we're aware that you watch us on a regular basis. So thanks very much for supporting us. Thanks very much for being
No, it's a pleasure. It's now it was great. And during the pandemic, all this Zoom, initially you felt it was too many, but I think it's great. I think we have to continue doing these chats and doing some of the tasting, and
I think so.
Because some people actually never go to a tasting; it's too far, or they're not mobile. For some people, it's been great.
It's certainly. I mean, that was when we started doing the virtual tasting, or we came to probably more to the end of the virtual tasting. We started speaking about going back to in-house. A lot of people were, can you still do the virtuals? Because and these guys were fairly local to us as well, but maybe out in the country, maybe a £10 in a taxi, But each way, you've already doubled your ticket price, and it's maybe not possible. So, but we also have people who just like to sit and watch, who maybe aren't confident to talk to people, and they just like to sit and listen and learn that way. So we'll certainly continue the virtual side of things for the foreseeable.
Yeah, no, brilliant. I mean, it doesn't replace face to face, but I think it's a really nice, welcome addition.
It's a great way of staying in touch with people that aren't close to where you are, and I think that's and we don't want to lose. There were so many people, and I mean, so many friends that we've got that actually aren't local to us. Great friends. We don't want to lose contact with these people.
Yeah.
And if we don't see you before September, hopefully we see you at the academy.
Yeah, with pleasure. With pleasure. Now keep in touch to give us a date, but Richard will definitely be there, and I'll be there if I can.
Hopefully
I'm not gallivanting somewhere, having all the fun.
Yeah. Well, if you have to gallivant, then do something. I'm sure there'll be an able replacement somewhere in the wings. Maybe Billy himself will make an appearance.
You never know. You never know. Well, thank you very much for your time, guys.
Thank you to everyone who's watching on Facebook and on YouTube. It's been a pleasure to have you all. Thanks for the questions. Some cracking questions there. And I think tonight's been our biggest YouTube following night.
Massive YouTube following tonight. Yeah, fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah. And feel free if you're kind of catching up, if you've been watching on. If you've been a bit late, like David, who's just popped on there, pop in any questions as you watch it or rewatch the recording, and we'll try and get back to you with some answers if you've got anything that you want to know. Next week, Russell, who have we got next week?
We've got Mark Fraser from Blether next week, I believe. Is that right? Looking at the dates, yes, 26. Yeah. So Blether. So Blether have got wonderful gin. That's some absolutely fabulous gin. The coastal gin is my absolute favourite. If anybody wants to go out and buy a bottle and try it before then, I highly recommend it. Wonderful stuff.
We have one bottle left of the port cask.
They've also got the McNairs, which I understand stands for hairy armpit, but I think it's maybe not quite. It's a loose kind of Gaelic translation. But the McNairs is their whiskey while we wait. So we've got a wonderful port cask in the shop just now, which is, you said, we've only got one bottle left, but great dram, guys, if you get a chance to try it. I think it's a Loch Lomond, am I? Don't quote me on that.
Or deny it.
Don't quote me on that. I haven't signed a disclaimer to say that's not the right answer. But they've got a lovely podcast whiskey on the go just now. They've had a few Barnaclays. Mark Fraser will tell us all about lovely new brand, fantastic new area dealing with whiskey. So join in next week and see what they've got to say.
Excellent. Thank you again, Juliette.
Thank you.
Guys. We'll hopefully see you in person in the shop
soon.
or some festivals or the academy, or if not, let's catch up online sometime soon. Cheers, guys.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time,
Hey guys.
everyone.
Cheers,
Cheers, Lanchava. Bye.